Okay, so I'm a Nikon shooter. I have been since the D300S, then a D700. Then I was one of the first to get my hands on a D4, which was a fantastic camera. Then a D800, then a D810, then a D850, a D5, a D500. Anyway, Nikon is my camera of choice, and I've got quite a few lenses to go along with all the cameras. I no longer have the D4, the D800, or the D810, but I do have my D850, D5, and D500. I've also pre-ordered a Nikon Z6. I really like what I see in the Nikon mirrorless, and I'm not going to let all the naysayers change my mind. I'll be an early adopter. I don't care. I'll take my chances. I did with every other camera, buying it as soon as it was announced or as soon as I could get my hands on it. Now, what is this video about? It's about all the Nikon hate that I see with all the influencers that are out there. So Nikon announces the Z6 and the Z7, and they really look good. A lot of things look good on paper, but with a few reviews that are already out on the cameras, or at least the Z7, Z6 isn't in production yet. But the Z7 looks good to me. I mean, it's a megapixel monster mirrorless camera. Let's face it. It's going to have great image quality. From the images that I've seen so far, I really like. But what I'm most interested in this new line is the video features. 300S had video. D700 didn't. The D4 did. Like the D4, but the video was lacking, to put it eloquently. The D800 and the D810. Video was there. Video was good. No AF to speak of during video. The D850 brought it up a step or up a level. And that's what I'm shooting this video on right now is my D850. It's in face detect autofocus mode. And, I'm fairly happy with it. Shooting the lens, the Nikon 24-70E wide open at 2.8. So, any little movement, it's going to chatter. The good thing is you can't hear it because I've got it so far away from myself right now. But let's talk about the Z6, Z7, and all the other announcements that have happened. The Z6 and Z7. I ordered the Z6 for the video capability. It's time to get into video. I mean, let's face it. Everything, YouTube, I think they just, not just announced, but the last figures I saw, there's about 10 billion folks that sign on to YouTube every day. 10 billion. There is 300 hours, 300 hours of video uploaded a minute. I may have that incorrect. It may be a lot more than that, but I seem to remember 300 hours of video a minute. Video is where it's at. Video is where everybody goes to figure out how to put brakes on their car, or paint their deck, or get a review of an item, or just entertainment. The 18 to 30-year-old crowd doesn't even watch TV anymore. Most of what they watch is on their personal devices, be it a phone, iPad, or maybe even a laptop. And YouTube is a big part of that. That's the content that they're consuming. So video is where it's at. I'm not saying stills have gone away. I still love shooting my cameras for stills. But video is here, and it's here to stay, and it's growing. It's growing fast. So the 18 to 30-year-old market is looking for these hybrid cameras, the Z6, Z7, and now the Canon EOS R. Sony's been around for a while, and Sony was the go-to. Sony had they were the only full-frame camera in the market, mirrorless camera in the market. Now that Nikon and Canon have announced, Sony's lost some market share. And people will argue and say, no, that's not true. But it is true. Because people like me that would have gone to Sony at some point in time probably don't have to now. Because Nikon has now announced their mirrorless cameras. And they look good. Canon announces a week later. Now, for everybody that's in, the Slotgate deal. I don't care about the one memory card. I only use the additional slot for overflow anyway. But I've been shooting XQD cards since they were first announced with the D4, and I have yet to ever have a failure on an XQD card. Doesn't mean it won't happen, I get that, but I'm willing to take that chance. So far, so good. And shooting video, I'm not backing up video on another card as well. So anyway, Canon's EOS R. Canon flew everybody out to Hawaii. Hey, great marketing. They brought all the influencers, the YouTube and social media influencers out there to review the camera. And most of them said it doesn't have any bearing on what they have to say about the camera. I beg to differ. I saw a difference in just their initial hands-on between the Nikon and the Canon. But anyway, the big thing is all the Nikon hate. Man, oh man, oh man. Everybody wants to just jump on top of Nikon with their Z series cameras and complain about everything. But I don't hear so much about the Canon. Fuji just announced the X-T3. It looks like a great camera. Not full frame, but it looks like a great camera. So let's just say that, you know, wherever you're invested, that's probably where you're going to stay as long as the maker provides a tool for you to use. Why all the hate on Nikon? Why all the love for Canon, the excuses and everything else? I'm not going to hate Canon, their entry into the mirrorless market. The EOS R looks like a good camera. I mean, the lens lineup for it looks fantastic. Now, I don't want those monster lenses for a mirrorless camera if I'm going for a smaller package, lighter weight. I really don't want a giant 3-pound lens, no matter how good it is, unless I'm going to mount it on a tripod or something like that. But anyway, kind of getting off track here. So Canon announces and everybody tries to make excuses talking about, well, the glass overshadows the camera. The camera, there are some issues with that camera. Not that I was in the market for it anyway, being a Nikon shooter. But just looking at the specs, you know, you got cropped 4K in the EOS R. You've got 1080 at 60 frames instead of the 120. So I don't understand why there isn't all this hatred from the influencers about that. They mention it, but they just gloss right over it. Whereas with Nikon, it seems to be a point they want to harp on for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 minutes. I don't think that makes the Canon EOS R a bad camera. I really don't. If you need those specs and the camera doesn't provide it, well, then I understand why you're going to look elsewhere. It seems like the only criticism for the EOS R is in the Canon camp itself. It's really funny that the Canon shooters seem to be very critical about what Canon released. I mean, for the most part, not every one of them, but looking at what they have to say, they're not extremely happy. I don't know why. I don't think it's a bad camera. Both cameras came out with a lens mount for all your glass that you already own, which is fantastic. The FTZ or the F to Z mount adapter for the Nikon, which really is a big deal for me because now I can use all my existing glass with the new camera. I did pick up the 24 to 70 to go along with it, so I have a native lens as well. And I'll continue to build my glass collection for the Z series as time goes on. This is my entry into the market and my ability to jump into a little more video, and that's what I want it for. So again, back to why all the hatred for Nikon? Nikon presented 2 decent cameras, if you ask me. Canon produced a decent camera as well. Are these going to bring Sony shooters back to Canon or Nikon if they had left? No, I don't think so. Probably not. But what's on the horizon? Neither Nikon or Canon are dead. Now, I love some of the shock jocks on YouTube talking about, well, that's it. This is the end of Nikon. This is the end of Canon. I mean, just ridiculous. Come on. Did Sony lose market share? You betcha they did. And people will argue and say, no, they didn't. Yes, they did. They held 100% of the market share in full-frame mirrorless cameras. That doesn't exist anymore. They now have competitors. So did they lose market share? Yes, they did. Because all those that might have thought about jumping from Nikon or from Canon to Sony are probably going to stay in their own camp for right now and wait to see how this mirrorless camera and those makers lineup work out. I think it's going to be fantastic. Is Nikon finished with a mirrorless camera? No, they've already stated, the president's already stated that there's a higher end model that will be developed and come out as well. Canon, I guarantee you, they're going to have something, and I hate to use the word compete, but to be on par with the Z7. That'll be their next step, I'm sure. What's Sony going to do? Sony's going to have to up their game now, and that's good for Sony shooters. Instead of ragging on Nikon and Canon and everybody else, you should be happy because we just gave you some competition, which means that Sony now has to step it up even more. So I look forward to seeing what Sony comes out with. Is it going to make me jump to Sony? Absolutely not. People that are shooting with the Canon EOS R here soon, are they going to jump to Sony? Probably not. So again, market share, competition is here. You just lost some, Sony. But good on you. Now push Nikon, push Canon to really up their game. I heard a lot of complaints about in-body stabilization with the Nikon. I didn't hear a peep about no in-body stabilization with Canon. I know Canon has image stabilization. Nikon's had that as well. And we all know how that works. It really doesn't. It just, I don't know. And you get a crop with it. So now on top of the crop that you have with the Canon EOS R, if you use image stabilization, you can bet there's going to be just that much more of a crop so that it can do the image stabilization, the sensor image or stabilization. No complaints, no constant chattering about it or anything else. And again, I'm not here to bash Canon. I know it sounds like it, I guess, with what I just said, but I'm not really. I'm just kind of upset that influencers out there seem for some reason to hate Nikon. What is it about Nikon that they've got to hate it so much? So anyway, what do you think? Is there a lot of hate for Nikon, or am I just imagining things because I'm a Nikon fanboy? I'll admit it. Or is there some bias out there with the influencers? You know, the dude that knows photos and the angry guy and the husband and wife team. They'll say, no, I don't hate Nikon. Well, you may not hate it, but you sure like to put Nikon down wherever you can. Other than the husband and wife team seem to enjoy the D850, but I guarantee you that won't last long. And anyway, all right, enough of me complaining. What do you think? Is there a lot of hate for Nikon? Does Canon get a pass? Is Sony going to be the only mirrorless maker in the future? Well, that's what some of the shock jocks on YouTube have said. I don't agree with any of them, but what do you think? Leave a comment. Tell me what you think. Anyway, this is my first video. Sorry it wasn't a grand production, but putting a set together and hope to do a lot more in the future. Thanks for watching. If you did, like, subscribe. Yeah, I know I hear that in all the other videos, but hey, it always makes us feel good if you like something and you subscribe. If you don't, that's okay too. If you want to leave some hate mail, that's all right as well. Anyway, a comment's a comment, and I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. I hope you have a good day.